we've been talking a little bit about the new year, and I didn't want to, overdo it here with New Year's thoughts and resolutions and changing your life in the new year and all of that, which is very, very important, I think, because the new year is kind of symbolic, right? We're going to turn the page. You even get a new calendar. If you got one on your wall, remember the old one? You toss it and you got a new one. Boy, there's a symbolic gesture. And just because I got a new calendar, I'm going to be a new person, right? Wrong. But what I can do, see, that's what people with New Year's resolutions do. They think, well, I'm going to stop doing this or I'm going to start doing this. Basically, those are the two categories, right? I'm going to stop something or I'm going to start something. Now, here's a question. If you haven't been able to do that for however many years, what's going to make you able to do it just because the calendar flipped over? See, that's what the problem with New Year's resolutions. If I'm okay, so I'm a competitive golfer, right? My whole life. Let's say that I'm a golfer, and let's just say I'm a slicer, okay? Which I'm not. I tend to be, when things go bad, I tend to be a hooker. I'll hit it left more than I'll hit it right. But I can hit it right sometimes. Anyway, let's say somebody's a chronic slicer, and they've always hit it right when they hit a bad shot. They're just a slicer. They can't get that club face closed. Some of you know what I'm talking. And they're going to make a New Year's resolution. Okay, this year, I'm not going to slice the ball. I'm going to hit it straight. Really? Let's go play, because I want that bet. If that's all you've done is make a resolution, you're going to try to make it different because you're not any different. Now, here's the good news. Slicers can learn how not to slice. I personally helped a lot of them to learn how not to slice. There are ways to beat that. But it takes some knowing some things, and it takes some focused attention, and it takes some deliberate practice, and it takes some support and trial and error and a bunch of other stuff, which I've been talking about in the handful of days previous to today. Today, though, I want to do one more episode on how we change something in the new year. And I've already talked about a lot of the elements that have to be there. You can go back and listen to the last few days' broadcasts to get those. But I'm going to leave you with one more today, and that is this. Beware of the obstacles. Beware of the obstacles. Now, what does that mean about changing your life? Well, in short, let me put it this way. We usually don't need new ways to fail because the old ones are working just fine. They work every time, right? People generally don't fail in new ways. People generally fail in the same way in whatever it is they're trying to do. For example, some people get started well, and then they hit the obstacle of a failure, right? I mean, a mini failure. Like you're going along, and then you have a little bit of a relapse, or you screw it up, or you're gonna make a relationship better, and then you have a fight. Whatever it is, you have one failure, and then they interpret failure as I'm a loser, I'm an idiot. What made me think I could ever do this? I'm going to be a better salesperson. I go and make a sales call, and I get rejected, and I feel like I'm an idiot. I'm not good enough, and I go into a black hole, and then I get depressed and I drop out, or I binge eat. And I knew I couldn't do this. And then I go eat to take care of my guilt feelings. And now I'm further down the binge eating. In other words, they'll interpret a failure catastrophically. That's one way of failing. Another way of failing is interfacing with people who are critical. And you go and you're vulnerable with somebody that's critical about your newfound path or your new goal or what you weren't trying to do, what you're trying. And they criticize you, say, well, you're too old for that. Or that never works. I knew somebody that tried that. Therapy's not, blah, blah, blah. And they criticize you, and you take that criticism and you go into a black hole and just kind of give up. Or other obstacles. Maybe you're going along fine, and then somebody asks you to do this, somebody else asks you to do this, and somebody else asks you to do this, and you're saying no. And all of a sudden, all of the focus and time that you had that you were going to put in this path to resolve this or to get this working this year, now you're too spread out and you don't have the time to write that book or to start that side business or to go back and take that class or to remodel the bin or whatever it is you're going to do. Because now I got too many things going on. Why? I failed because I lost focus and I got distracted. Or maybe I couldn't say no. Or maybe I'm codependent and I got to go help everybody else because I see their dreams and goals as more important than my own. So I always put myself back on third burner. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways. Maybe you go, let's take some sort of, something like something you do to self-medicate, right? Overeat, oversex, wrong sex. In other words, you go, have illicit sex or porn addiction or retail therapy, you go spending, make yourself feel better, or binge eating or whatever it is. And you don't realize that maybe what's the obstacle there is maybe there's a trigger of emptiness or loneliness. And the way you fail, the pattern of failure, is that you continue to try to do something new path from an isolated place. And you're basically lonely and don't have the support you need. Or maybe you try to rely on your own sense of discipline. And you don't have the external structure that you need. Maybe instead of trying this on your own, you ought to join a group or join a class. Or maybe it's a lack of accountability. See, here's the deal. We pretty much get wired, in our formative years and experiences. It's really interesting. It's in the Psalms where David says, somehow where they have oppressed him from his youth, he says, and they've dug deep furrows in my back. Deep furrows in my back. Can you even believe how accurate that is? In other words, these patterns where you get hurt and you might get abused or you might get, mistreated or whatever. I grew up in the South, and a furrow, when they dig up the soil and you dig these furrows and then it hardens and they last. And that's how patterns are in our brains. And we have critical voices that condemn us, and those patterns are stuck in there until we start to change them. And so patterns of failure can be fixed patterns. In other words, they're pretty secure. They're not going anywhere until you uproot the soil. And that's what I want you to do in today's lesson. I want you to look at this next year and then dial it back to the next month and then the next week and maybe today. And say, how is after I've identified my patterns of failure, out of all the things I just listed, how am I most likely to not reach my goal? And I want you to identify that. When a Navy SEAL lands in enemy territory, here's what they taught me. They immediately look at their GPS and they answer 3 questions. Where am I? The second question is, where's the enemy? And the third question is, where's my buddy? If I know where I am, I'm not in enemy territory, or I am, oops, I'm in trouble. Second question is, where are the bad guys that are going to be shooting at me? And the third question is, where's my buddy who's going to help me? Well, all those are important in changing your behavior as well. But the one I'm focusing on is, where is the enemy? What is the enemy to your path? Is it loneliness? Is it other people's pressure? Is it narcissists? Is it somebody gaslighting you? Is it trying to do too many things? Is it inability to say no? Is it distractibility? Give you a great example from my life right now. You guys know that I have sitting here with me. Do you know what I have? That my daughters always take care of me. I have a jar of pickles. I couldn't. Sorry, it's just sitting here. There's no way I could go this whole show and not have some of these. Anyway, so I'll tell you one from my life. And no, my goal is to not eat pickles. That's kind of okay. So on the diet. So here's one from my life. I'm writing a book right now, and I told you yesterday I've got to have a certain plan, a certain structure to do that. All right. So in the month of January, I've got to get a certain bunch of this, compiling all the research that I've been doing for about 3 years now, actually longer than that, on this book, and compiling it all and breaking it up and getting it into the right places, et cetera, right? And then I've got to get at least about, in my way of thinking, I probably need to get about all that done, the structure of it done, and then about 20,000 words written. Okay. Now, I look at my calendar and I look at what I've got to do this month, work-wise, consulting days, other kinds of stuff. A lot of stuff I have to do. And I got this time blocked out. But I have time blocked out to accomplish what I just told you about. My biggest obstacle, my biggest enemy is not being careful, and that white space will get filled up. And I'll say, yeah, well, it's just one phone call. Oh, it's just one consult, or it's just this one person that, they're my friend's nephew needs some help. And okay, I can talk to him here, or this, that, and the other. I will get distracted and I will get pulled off of just my calendar will just get filled up. It will. So, guard your obstacles. I looked at my calendar yesterday, and my trusty assistant, all of a sudden, I see there is a 2-hour conference call on one of my white space days. I go, what? What happened? How did that happen? So I got in touch with her and I said, anything that is white for the rest of the month, block it. I don't want to see anything, and just don't do it. If I don't know that I have this propensity to just take on one little bit's not gonna, well, one call here, one call. You have to take care of your obstacles. You have to see where you're going to fail. And I will fail if I don't take a very, very severe step to say, no, 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 right? Because I'll fail if I don't do that. So there's an example. What are your obstacles? What are going to make this New Year's thing not happen? You're going to get tired. You're going to run out of motivation. How are you going to fight that? How are you going to fight that when you don't want to go to that meeting? Well, do you have a buddy that's going to come knock on the door and say, get your butt there? Okay. Get ready for the ways that you're going to fail. I know. I'll give you another example. I'm still in physical therapy for my my knee. I just had surgery. But I'm up and around and I'm walking now and I can function. But I really need to continue it to get to, full rehab. I sat down with physical therapists and put every appointment in for 2 months. Because if they weren't in there, I would say, well, I can skip it this day because I really need to do this. And you just have to put the big rocks into the calendar first, and then they put the little ones in, wherever the big rocks being in the jar. Whatever's important, it's got to go in there first, at least in my case. Maybe you're not like that. But you have other obstacles if you're a human.